Now, in related news, Western diplomats are exposing an alleged swap agreement between Iran and Russia, in which Iran would help Russia avoid oil sanctions after signing the JCPOA. Joining me on this and more, CEO and founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum, Brigadier General Reserves Amir Avivi. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hello.
So if sanctions on Iran are lifted, can Russia really use Iran to launder money?
Definitely. I think that this process has been prepared for a very long time. I think that Russia, Iran, China, they understand that the West, although it has huge military power, has zero willingness to use it. And the West's only real weapon on the table is sanctions. And therefore, since the operation in Crimea, Russia has worked together with Iran, also the Chinese, to really think how they're going to win this battle on sanctions. Russia made a lot of preparations, and we can see that they are actually winning. When you look at the ruble, it is at highest point in the last few years. Since the beginning of the operation, it doubled itself. The economy of Russia is growing. The debt, the national debt of Russia, is less than 1/5 than the US debt. It's 19%. So definitely they are thinking how to bypass the sanctions, and signing this agreement will enable Russia to launder money, to sell oil to Iran, and then Iran will sell its all oil to the east and to the west.
So, Amir, if Tehran and Moscow try this swap, wouldn't Western sanctions on Russia extended to Iran?
No, it won't happen because the West wants to appease Iran. This agreement they're going to sign is a complete surrender to Iran, and they're going to close their eyes like they did for the last few years when Iran started selling oil again. Today, when you send a ship with oil, this ship can change 10 times on the way the flag. It's the sea is a complete chaos. It's very hard to monitor that. And I don't think they'll have the willingness to really try and deal with Iran unless we'll see in 2 years a change of regime, a change of administration in the US, and then maybe things will be different.
Mm-hmm. While Russians' interest with the JCPOA clearly doesn't line up with the US or Europe, but what about China? What does Xi Jinping want from the deal?
Well, the Chinese want to extend their ability to build a new Silk Way. They want to be able to move their goods through Iran, to Iraq, to Jordan, and even to Israel. In some ways, there is a huge fight over how will be the flow of goods through the Middle East, whether it will be as Biden envisions it and before Trump, through UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel, or through Iran. The Chinese signed a 25 years agreement with Iran. They are investing huge amounts of money. They see this country as an opportunity and a door to the West. And this is what the Chinese care. And they're also learning carefully the issue of sanctions, because if they will decide to attack Taiwan, definitely, if they can really deal well with the sanctions, they will do that.
Yes, and could a deal die because of these side deals, or how much attention is the West paying to these reports?
So we see that the West wants the deal at any cost. At any cost, this deal is a terrible deal. At the end of the day, the deal will do two main things. One, it will assure that Iran will be nuclear, because the deal itself says that when it ends, basically Iran can enrich indefinite amount of uranium, which means that they can move in weeks to become a a huge nuclear power. And the other thing is that this was mentioned by Lapid, the Minister of Israel, is that they will get $100 billion and they will use this money to equip the militias and completely destabilize the Middle East. When Obama, same thing.
Yeah, which is horrible. So I want to ask you to conclude, do you think it is at all possible that Israel will convince Washington to back out so close to ending this deal?
At this stage, I must say I'm not optimistic. I'm pessimistic. I think that the Europeans and the Americans want to get this done. It seems to me too late. I think that the Israeli government should have been much more strong on this issue. In the last year, we hardly heard the government talking about that. If I was the Prime Minister of Israel, I would put a tent outside of Vienna and stay there until I break this deal down. It's existential for Israel. Yeah. And the fact that now our Prime Minister doesn't even manage to have a phone call with the President of the US, this is very bad news for Israel and where we are in this scenario.
Yeah, they started maybe too little, too late. Brigadier General Reserves Amir Avivi, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.